Chapter 4 of Gulliver of Mars by Edwin L. Arnold. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording by James Christopher, jxchristopher@yahoo.com. Gulliver of Mars by Edwin L. Arnold. Chapter 4. They lodged me like a prince in a tributary country that first night. I was tired. 'Twas a stiff stage I had come the day before, and they gave me a couch whose ethereal softness seemed to close like the wings of a bird as I plunged at its touch into fathomless slumbers. But the next day had hardly broken when I was awake, and stretching my limbs upon the piled silk of a legless bed upon the floor, found myself in a great chamber with a purple tapestry across the entrance, and a square arch leading to a flat terrace outside. It was a glorious daybreak, making my heart light within me, the air like new milk, and the colors of the sunrise lay purple and yellow in bars across my room. I yawned and stretched, then rising, wrapped a silken quilt about me and went out into the flat terrace top, wherefrom all the city could be seen stretched in an ivory and emerald patchwork, with open blue water on one side, and the Martian plain trending away in illimitable distance upon the other. Directly underneath, in a great square at the bottom of Hath's palace steps, were gathered a concourse of people, brilliant in many-colored dresses. They were sitting or lying about just as they might for all I knew have done throughout the warm night, without much order, save that where the black streaks of inlaid stone marked the carriageway across the square none were stationed. While I wondered at what would bring so many together thus early, there came a sound of flutes, for these people can do nothing without piping like finches in a thicket in May, and from the storehouses halfway over to the harbour there streamed a line of carts piled high with provender. Down came the teams attended by their slaves, circling and wheeling into the open place, and as they passed each group those lazy, lolling beggars crowded round and took the dole they were too thriftless to earn themselves. It was strange to see how listless they were about the meal, even though Providence itself put it into their hands; to note how the yellow-girded slaves scudded amongst them, serving out the loaves themselves had grown, harvested, and baked, slipping from group to group, rousing, exhorting, and ministering to a hapless throng that took their efforts without thought or thanks. I stood there a long time, one foot upon the coping and my chin upon my hand, noting the beauty of the ruined town, and wondering how such a feeble race as that which lay about, breakfasting in the limpid sunshine, could have come by a city like this, or kept even the ruins of its walls and buildings from the covetousness of others, until presently there was a rustle of primrose garments and my friend of the day before stood by me. "Are you rested, traveller?" she questioned in that pretty voice of hers. "Rested ambrosially, An." "It is well. I will tell the government, and it will come up to wash and dress you, afterwards giving you breakfast. For the breakfast, damsel, I shall be grateful, but as for the washing and dressing, I will defend myself to the last gasp sooner than submit to such administration." "How strange! Do you never wash in your country?" "Yes, but it is a matter left largely to our own discretion. So, my dear girl, if you will leave me for a minute or two in quest of that meal you mentioned, I will guarantee to be ready when it comes." Away she slipped, with a shrug of her rosy shoulders, to return presently, carrying a tray covered with a white cloth, whereon were half a dozen glittering covers whence came the most fragrant odours of cooked things. "Why, comrade," I said, sitting down and lifting lid by lid, for the cold, sweet air outside had made me hungry, "this is better than was hoped for. I thought from what I saw down yonder I should have to trot behind a tumbrel for my breakfast, and eat it on my heels amongst your sleepy friends below." An replied, "The stranger is a prince, we take it, in his own country, and princes fare not quite like common people, even here." "So," I said, my mouth full of strange unknown fish, and a cake soft as milk and white as cotton in the pod, "now that makes me feel at home." "Would you have it otherwise with us?" "No. Now that I come to think of it, it is most natural things should be much alike in all corners of the universe. The splendid simplicity that rules the spheres works much the same way, no doubt, upon one side of the sun as upon the other. Yet somehow, you can hardly wonder at it, yesterday I looked to find your world, when I realized where I had tumbled to, a world of Jinn and giants, of mad possibilities over realized, and here I see you dwellers by the utterly remote, little more marvellous than if I had come amongst you on the introduction of a cheap tourist ticket, and round some neglected corner of my own distant world." "I hardly follow your meaning, sir." "No, of course you cannot. I was forgetting you did not know. There, pass me this stuff on yonder plate that looks like caked mud from an anchor fluke and smells like breath of paradise, and let me question you." and while I sat and drank with that yellow servitor sitting in front of me, I plied her with questions, just as a baby might who had come into the world with a full-blown gift of speech. But though she was ready and willing enough to answer, and laughed gaily at my quaint ignorance of simple things, yet there was little water in the well. Had they any kind of crafts or science, any cult of stars or figures? But again she shook her head and said, Hath might know, Hath understood most things, but herself little of either. Armies or navies? And again the Martian shrugged her shoulders, questioning in turn, What for? What for? I cried, a little angry with her engaging dulness. Why, to keep that which the strong hand got, and to get more for those who come next. Navies to sweep yonder blue seas, and armies to ward what they should bring home, or guard the city walls against all enemies. For I suppose, An, I said, putting down my knife as the cheering thought came on me, I suppose, An, you have some enemies? It is not like Providence to give such riches as you possess, such lands, such cities, and not supply the antidote in some one poor enough to covet them. At once the girl's face clouded over, and it was obvious a tender subject had been chanced upon. She waved her hand impatiently as though to change the subject, but I would not be put off. Come, I said, this is better than breakfast. It was the one thing, this unknown enemy of yours, wanting to lever the dull mass of your too peacefulness. What is he like? How strong? How stands the quarrel between you? I was a soldier myself before the sea allured me, and love horses and sword best of all things. You would not jest if you knew our enemy. That is as it may be. I have laughed in the face of many stronger foe than yours is like to prove. But anyhow, give me a chance to judge. Come, who is it that frightens all the blood out of your cheeks by a bare mention, and may not be laughed at even behind these substantial walls? First, then, you know, of course, that long ago this land of ours was harried from the west. Not I. No, said An with a little warmth. If it comes to that, you know nothing. Whereat I laughed, and saying the reply was just, vowed I would not interrupt again. And so she went on saying how Hath, that interminable Hath, would know it all better than she did. But long ago the land was overrun by a people from beyond the broad blue waters outside, a people huge of person, hairy and savage, uncouth, unlettered, and poor An's voice trembled even to describe them, a people without mercy or compunction, dwellers in woods, eaters of flesh, who burnt, plundered, and destroyed all before them, and had toppled over this city along with many others in an ancient foray, the horrors of which still burnt lurid in her people's minds. Ever since then, went on the girl, these odious terrors of the outer land have been a nightmare to us, making hectic our pleasures, and filling our peace with horrid thoughts of what might be, should they chance to come again. "'Tis fortunate, no doubt, lady," I answered. "Yet it was long ago, and the plunderers are far away. Why not rise and raid them in turn? To live under such a nightmare is miserable, and a poet on my side of the ether has said, he either fears his fate too much, or his deserts are small, who will not put it to the touch, to win or lose it all. It seems to me you must either bustle and fight again, or sit tamely down, and by paying the coward's fee for peace, buy at a heavy price indulgence from the victor. We," said An simply, and with no show of shame, "would rather die than fight, and so we take the easier way, though a heavy one it is. Look," she said, drawing me to the broad window whence we could get a glimpse of the westward town and the harbour out beyond the walls. "Look, see yonder long row of boats with brown sails, hanging loose reefed from every yard ranged all along the quay. Even from here you can make out the thin stream of porter slaves passing to and fro between them, and the granaries like ants on a sunny path. Those are our tacksmen's ships. They came yesterday from far out across the sea, as punctual as fate, with the first day of spring, and 2 or 3 nights hence we trust will go again, and glad shall we be to see them start, although they leave scuppered deep with our cloth, our corn, and gold." "Is that what they take for tribute?" "That, and one girl, the fairest they can find." "One, only one! 'Tis moderate, all things considered." "She is for the thither king Ar-hap, and though only one as you say, stranger, yet he who loses her is apt sometimes to think her one too many lost." "By Jupiter himself it is well said. If I were that man I would stir up heaven and hell until I got her back. Neither man nor beast nor devil should stay me in my quest." As I spoke I thought for a minute An's fingers trembled a little as she fixed a flower upon my coat, while there was something like a sigh in her voice as she said, The maids of this country